Can't you see? Everyone! They're here already! You're next!
Let's go!
Welcome to the future, where the glass is half full and you'll need new glasses, where you'll be jumping from conclusions.
The past is annulled, and a new future is born!
Never before in history has so much meant so little to so many. AD on the radio.
So for the first time since 1945, tonight when the World Series begins in Cleveland, the Chicago Cubs are going to be in it. Cubs getting their first chance in 71 years to win the championship that they haven't won since 1908. And it's no small wonder that fans are emotional. Chicago Cubs count among their dedicated fans Eddie Vedder of Pearl Jam, who did this live at Wrigley Field.
When you're born in Chicago, you're blessed and you're healed. The first time you walk into Wrigley Field,
I think this whole city would absolutely explode.
Well, it would be certainly the biggest sports event in the history of Chicago.
It's going to be the greatest thing I've ever experienced as a Cubs fan.
I imagine after a couple moments, I'll call my mom and dad. I don't know. We'll see. I guess you can't practice spontaneity.
When the day comes for that last winning run, and I'm crying and covered in beer, I look to the sky and know I was right to think someday we'll go all the way. Yeah, someday we'll go all the way.
After the final out of the final game, when the Cubs are world champions, say, gee, what do we do next? You know what the answer to that is? Win again next year.
I wanted nothing more. I wanted nothing more on the 30th anniversary of my New York Mets winning the 1986 World Series for them to go all the way again. I had this hope. I had this dream in the back of my mind that I didn't even dare to speak out loud because I thought it was jinxing it, and I thought that I was the only one having it, but I was confident other people might have been thinking it too, and I thought maybe, just maybe, somebody else feels the same way I do. You start looking at the teams, you start realizing who's up in the game, you start seeing Big Papi in his last season for the Boston Red Sox start to hit. You see them really, really start to get some traction, and you think, could it be? Could it be the anniversary, the 30th anniversary of the 1986 World Series, arguably the greatest World Series of all time, Mets, Red Sox? Could history repeat itself 30 years ago? Since the beginning of the season, I've been thinking that. Not something I dared to say out loud until the chance was gone, for fear of jinxing it. And it didn't happen. And you know what? That's disappointing. But I'm happy for the Chicago Cubs, and I'm happy for Chicago Cubs fans everywhere. I can't imagine how this feels. Watched that last game as the Cubs clinched the World Series. And it was no mistake that the cameras were focused on people that looked like they'd been there. Folks that had been there in 1945 to see their last World Series. 1945 was the last time the Cubs went to the World Series. And I thought it was beautiful, and I thought it was awesome, and I wanted so badly to be one of those people and feel what they were feeling. But you can't. But you can understand the look on their faces, the tears in their eyes as they realized that something unthinkable was happening. It was a magical thing to see on the television. A couple tears rolled down my face as I was watching that final out, that final double play that clinched the Cubs into the World Series. And I thought that was great. I talked to a friend of mine from Chicago who, interestingly enough, seemed more invested this year in the Cubs. And, well, look, I can't imagine that it's possible to be from Chicago and not feel more invested in the Cubs this year. But I didn't even know he liked baseball. I seemed to get very excited for every single Cubs win. One of those guys, very good friends, but for whatever reason, hadn't had a chance to speak to him in a little while. We caught up the other day, and he told me just why it meant so much that the Chicago Cubs were in the World Series this year, and why it broke my heart. And whatever magic there is to my will in rooting for a team, it's made me fully root for the Chicago Cubs to finally go all the way this year, and I'll tell you why next.
Where the left and right come together for fundamental truths. AD on the radio, on Twitter at ADSXE.
Every day you're going and working, running that rat race, that pace and that place will leave a bad taste. We're singing out, go Cubs, go, go Cubs, go. Hey Chicago, what do you say? The Cubs are gonna win. Go Cubs, go, go Cubs, go. Hey Chicago, what do you say? The Cubs are gonna win today. Go Cubs, go, go Cubs, go. Hey Chicago, what do you say? The Cubs are gonna win today.
Let's
Go
go!
Cubs, go! Go Cubs, go! Hey Chicago, what do you say? The Cubs are gonna win today. It's a man!
So I don't really have a dog in the race when it comes to the World Series. But as I was saying before, I'm happy for the Cubs. I'm especially happy for the Cubs fans. Last time they were in the World Series, 1945. Last time they won, 1908. 109 years have passed. And you know what's very interesting about that was this friend of mine that I told you. He's from Chicago, and he seemed really excited. With every Cubs victory this year, he seemed excited, which was interesting because I hadn't really heard him talk about baseball in the past. And look, you know, I'm not going to cheapen the experience by calling it bandwagon jumping. There's no way this can happen in the city of Chicago. Unless you're a White Sox fan, you're going to be elated by this. It's a big, big deal for the people of Chicago. But it wasn't just the fact that the Chicago Cubs were in the World Series for the first time since 1945 and he was caught up in it. I talked to him and he's like, "Yeah, Cubs won." I was like, "Yep, that's cool." He's like, "I'm going to go back to Chicago and try and watch some games with my dad. If only on the television set." I was like, "That's great. Is your dad a big Chicago Cubs fan?" He's like, Yeah, he is. Yeah. And he's hoping to see a Chicago Cubs World Series victory before he dies. I was like, well, I guess that's what he has in common with pretty much everybody. That's what he has in common with pretty much everybody in Chicago. And he's like, how long has it been since we've talked? And I was like, well, a while now. And I don't know how you have a friend and you miss something like this in their life. He's like, "My father has terminal brain cancer." I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." He's like, "It's okay. It's okay. He's in a good place. He's got a great attitude. I feel okay with it. My mom's okay with it. It's okay." But he said during the course of the season that he really hopes that before he passes, he sees a Chicago Cubs victory. It's a magical healing thing. It's a magical and a healing thing when your team wins. Over the summer, I was having a rough time for any number of reasons, as people often do. Look, life throws you curveballs, life throws you disasters, life throws you things that you feel like you're never going to be able to handle. But you can, because you have to, and life goes on. But during an especially rough patch, I was lucky enough, and if you've listened to the show, you've heard me talk about this before, but I was lucky enough to join the Mets fan club, the 7-Line Army, and march through the streets of San Diego as they got ready to take on the Padres. One of the best days of my life. Beautiful day. Beautiful day. Smiles everywhere. Local Padres fans bemused, but joyful in the spirit of what was going on. Taking in New York Mets fans, their takeover of their streets in a friendly way that I think only San Diegans can. And something magical happened. It wasn't just hanging out with those folks. It wasn't just being a part of an amazing and beautiful day. It wasn't just taking in a ball game on a perfect day for ball games. Bartolo Colon, after 20-something years in the major leagues, a guy who straight up couldn't hit for a long time, a guy who would tell people, I'm not going to swing, so, do whatever you want. Hit his first ever career home run. He worked on his hitting. Amazing, amazing pitcher. Never known for hitting. Worked on it. Hit his first home run. And you were there in a moment where you saw, oh my gosh, Colon got a hit. Oh my gosh, this is going back. This is going back toward the warning track. This is over the wall. This is gone. Bartolo Colon hit a home run. Wait a second, he's never done that before. Oh my gosh, I was here when Bartolo Colon hit his first ever career home run. In his 40s, been playing baseball for 20 years. That was it. I was there. And then the Mets won. And in an especially rough period of life, where life had the hits just kept on coming. And not the good kind of hits that you look forward to in baseball. I was healed by the single career home run of Bartolo Colon. And if that did that for me, oh gosh, I really hope the Cubs win it this time, because there's incredible power in that. Go Cubs, go.
You're waiting to get washed away.
Real radio. Real radio. 104.1.
Don't get the blues, get all the news. We mean all of you guys out there in Radio Land. All aboard!
He's back. AD on the radio.
Give it up, yeah. Give it up, yeah. Bring this on, come on, come on. That's the way you do what we do. That's the way you do what we do. That's the way you do what we do.
So our guest on the show today is a guy called William Duvall, who's lead singer of Alice in Chains. He is our next interview in our Punk Rock Politics entertainment and interview series, as we talk to as many musicians and entertainers as we possibly can in the run-up to the election. Which, oh man, that's right around the corner. That's going to happen. That's going to be a thing. So all this is going to be over soon, and whatever is next, whatever we're going to be dealing with, it's days away now. How do you feel about that? You feel like you're ready to let it all go? Do you even care at this stage in the game? Do you even care who gets elected? Are you one of those people that goes, This is just an indicator that everything is completely effed. If these are our two choices, then I suppose I hate this person less than I hate the other person, so that's who I'm going to vote for. But what the hell, man? What the hell? I was thinking about this the other day, and as we are on the verge of this historic, for all the wrong reasons, election. I wonder if people that are about to vote are starting to look back at the amount of their lives that they've given to this election. Look, this is my job. I'm supposed to cover this sort of thing. But there were times where I'm like, that's it. I'm out. I'm watching the ball game. I wonder if you added up the amount of man hours / woman hours that had been dedicated to mindlessly fighting on Facebook about politics, on Twitter about politics, on all forms of social media about politics since this election cycle began. I wonder if you added that all up, what the dollar amount would be that could be placed on all that. They talk about the billions of dollars of productivity that are lost to fantasy football every single year. I shudder to think. Let's forget the national dollar amount assigned to it. I know some people that if they had taken all the time that they spent arguing about politics on Facebook and got a part-time job flipping burgers somewhere, got a part-time job being a bartender, got a part-time job driving for Uber. Yeah, that's a good example. Imagine somebody had taken every single hour that they spent arguing about politics online and instead spent that time driving for Uber, something that anybody with a car can do. How many hours of lost productivity would they have had? What would that dollar amount have been? Now, obviously, there's a different number for everybody. But I brought this up to somebody that drove for Uber the other day, and he was like, yeah, there were times where I should have been out driving, but, I got into it on Facebook. I was like, listen to what you just said. Listen to what he's like, I know. With the benefit of some perspective, I am kicking myself. Guy that works in radio, doesn't make enough working in radio, drives for Uber, but is also very passionate about politics. And he was like, I lost out on a significant amount of money because I was arguing with people on Facebook. I was like, really? And he's like, yeah. A lot of money over the last several months. I was like, how do you feel about that now? He's like, not too good. And I was like, why? He's like, well, I don't believe in my candidate anymore. I was like, no kidding. He's like, I mean, I believe in them. I'm going to be voting for them. However, I'm voting for them now because they're the lesser of two evils, not because they're as great as I thought they were going into the situation. I was like, how do you feel about that? He's like, I feel foolish. I was like, do you feel like you have taken hours of your life and dedicated it to someone's career who does not care about you, who probably won't repay you, who will never acknowledge what you've done? He's like, yep. I feel cheated. And the worst thing is, I feel like I cheated myself. Interesting, right? We talk about how politicians cheat us. We talk about how the government cheats us. We talk about how the system, whatever the system is, cheats us. But my friend said something very illuminating. He said, I feel like I cheated myself. And that about sums it up for me. People have cheated themselves left, right, and center by giving so much of their lives to people that do not care about them. Maybe they do in a vague public servant-y sort of way. But so much invested, so much wasted, so much gone, so much time, so much effort, so much of your life, or so much of this guy's life, that he will never get back. And I was like, how do you feel about that? He was like, well, I learned a lesson. And that lesson is, I'm not going to do that ever again. I was like, you learned a lesson that you should be handling your own business. He's like, yeah, I should be handling my own business. He's like, you know what? I have a dog. I love my dog. Times when I should have been outside playing with my dog that I was inside on Facebook, arguing with people, not driving Uber, not making money, cheating myself, cheating my dog, cheating the thing that I love the most in this world, my dog, out of quality time. And you know what? The election's days away. The election is days away. And if that's you as well, it is officially too late. But I hope we learn a lesson moving forward. I hope we learn a lesson moving forward that it's your life and it's your business and you are there to handle it. And for that reason, you always want to bear in mind that your destiny is your business. How the shape of your world appears when you wake up in the morning is your doing. A politician will not change anything for you. You got problems in your life? It's important to vote. Your vote is vital. It's an important thing that you need to exercise as an American, your right to vote. But don't get it twisted. Your life, what happens in it, your responsibility will always fall to you. All right, then, Funkhouser, how long we got? How long we got before William Duvall shows up? There are no sandwiches today because he's calling in. When the guests and when the rock stars are here in person, we get sandwiches, and Funkhouser enjoys that. But today,
I cleaned the studio for nothing.
Sorry.
We got at least one more break here. He's going to come in at the end.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, then. Shall we do a little news before William Duvall of Alice in Chains gets here?
I guess. Since there's so much news going on. Insiders say Jay-Z can't stand Kanye West.
Oh. Well, if that's true, it would give Jay-Z something in common with everybody else who was not named Kanye West. Go on, what else?
Taylor Swift claims a DJ took his hand and shoved it up her dress.
Oh, you wrote a song about that. Do you remember that, Funkhouser?
Refresh my memory. No, I can't remember.
You didn't touch my butt.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the DJ said it was like kind of a joke, kind of a goof, or like the back of his jacket brushed her butt. And she was like, no, you took your hand and you shoved it up my dress. This particular DJ. Sounds like Donald Trump found someone to provide the music at his inauguration party. What else?
New tips for a healthy heart include eating more garlic and having more sex.
Generally speaking, the two things are mutually exclusive. How are you supposed to be getting it on more when you're eating all that garlic? Does garlic breath put you off, Funkhouser?
Not really. I'm not an onion and bell pepper guy. Still trying to get behind those, so those kind of put me off. But nowadays, nothing really puts me off. I guess I'm just okay with a lot of things.
Okay with a lot of things? You just resign yourself to that. Hey, it's at least it's happening.
Yes.
Is that Did your girlfriend's brother move out?
Mm-hmm.
And since he's moved out, has there been increased frequency of in the Funkhouser household?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. One word answer? Sure. Yes.
Good for you.
Correct. Last night, honey. Last night she says, "Oh, honey, I have had a chance to catch up on the AD shows, and we have a lot to talk about." I'm like, "Oh, you haven't been listening every day?" She's like, "No, I just caught up from the last 2 weeks today." So moving right along, Senator.
So how's that going?
Oh, things are okay.
Okay.
Senator Elizabeth Warren said, unlike Trump, Hillary Clinton doesn't get up at 3 a.m. to send out mean tweets.
Yeah, no, she gets up at 3 a.m. to yell at Bill because that's usually when he's trying to sneak back in. Where have you been? Where do you think? We've been doing this for a long time now. Go on.
A North Carolina judge tried to bribe a cop to monitor his wife's text messages by offering him 2 cases of Bud Light.
A judge tried to bribe a cop to monitor his wife's text messages, and what he offered up
48 Bud Lights.
The career-ending offense, I think, just and indicative of corruption on so many levels, and all that was at stake. 2 cases of Bud Light. That's it. Hey, I'd like for you to risk your career. How many in a case did we say? 24? There's 12 and 12. So here's 24 beers. Not much known about this judge other than the fact that he has terrible taste in beer.
Yes. In an interview with Anderson Cooper, Melania Trump says she's never heard her husband use the kind of language he used in the Access Hollywood tape.
Yeah.
Never.
She said she was never heard him use that kind of language before. I think she said that her husband was egged on by Billy Bush, peer pressured by Billy Bush into saying bad things, which, let's be real here, is the kind of strong-willed person that you want as commander-in-chief. Go on.
Lady Gaga says with her new album, she wants people to concentrate on the music and not her clothing.
Which must be why she's not wearing any. Go on. What else?
Luke Perry is on the cover of AARP, the magazine.
AARP, because he's
y'all don't know AARP.
How old do you have to be AARP eligible to get your AARP card so you get into movies, stuff like that cheaper? I think 50, right?
I think so.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Turns out 90210 is now his cholesterol count. So I saw the picture, and somehow he still seems way younger than he did when he was supposed to be playing a high school kid. I remember seeing 90210 and then reruns of 90210 when I was in middle school, and I was like, I guess I'll look like that when I'm in high school. That's that guy's looked 40 since he was 14, I think. It was crazy. And I don't know, he was way too old to be playing a teenager when 90210 was out, but he wasn't that old. It was weird because generally speaking, if you're going to hire an actor to play a young person on the show, you go for a young actor. It was funny because I remember watching Gilmore Girls. Don't laugh, it's very well written. And it was on. And have you ever seen Gilmore Girls? They're bringing it back for Netflix. Man, the dialogue on that show is so snappy and so well written, and I got sucked into it once. And it turns out that one of the teenagers on it was a 32-year-old, and I was just wow, they look really young, unlike Luke Perry, who was playing a teenager and looked like he was 45 when he was 24. Very, very strange stuff. But he's still out there doing things, and for that reason, good for him.
It's okay to disagree. It's not okay to be understimulated.
Well, I was just thinking that...
This is KPRC 950.
Now, more AD on the radio.
So our guest on the show today would be William Duvall, lead singer of Alice in Chains. He is the latest in our Punk Rock Politics interview series, a series where we talk to as many different entertainers and musicians as we possibly can in the run-up to the election. Why? Well, because we want to know why people think the things that they do. Look, we've said it time and time again, and the reason we say it time and time again is because it bears repeating. You, me, all of us, we are living in a time where, at least in my adult life, America is more divided than I ever remember it being before, ever. And what we're trying to do is build a bridge of understanding. It's much, much more difficult. It's much, much more difficult to harbor malice, ill will, hatred in your heart for someone when you get to know them a little bit. Look, we as a people We as a species, I think, are just hardwired to want to get along. We're built to serve each other. This is well documented. This is well established. There's been papers written on this. When you help somebody, you feel good. When you see somebody else helping somebody else, you feel good. Why? Because it releases chemicals like oxytocin in your body. You feel feelings of love. 9 times out of 10, the things that are going to make you feel better about your life when you feel down have something to do with helping somebody else. We want to get along. We want to help other people. We want to be of service to one another. And for that reason, I find it really, really hard to understand how we've gotten so divided. And I think the reason we've become so divided is because we are less and less connected every single day. This technology that was meant to bridge gaps of understanding, that was meant to bring us all together as a species, has wound up isolating folks. And people feel a sense of loneliness and isolation. And people feel like no one's got their back for any number of reasons in America. And people are on the defensive. People are animalistic. People want to dominate or be dominated. And that's not how we're meant to be. It's not a happy way of going through life for us, but it's a condition that we are living in every single day, now more than ever before. And for that reason, our little contribution in which we try to bridge these gaps of understanding, of race, of religion, of politics, of gender, of any of the above, our little contribution is trying to get as many people in this room that have had these experiences of globetrotting, seeing the world, meeting lots of folks that are different from them every single day, which musicians and entertainers tend to do, and talk to them about how they came to believe the things that they believe. You don't have to agree with them. You could violently disagree with the things that they want, the things that they desire, the things that they believe. But the point is to try and build up a better understanding of as big a variety of people as we can, to figure out how and why they are wired the way they are, and try and get that. If your neighbor votes differently from you, there's a good chance you've got a more balanced perspective on this sort of thing. If you live in a block where everybody has a sign in their front yard urging people to vote for the same person, well, there's a choir, and you probably preach to each other every single day in your own little way. And it's really, really easy to look at another block that has different signs and go, they're stupid. They're an evil a-hole. They hate America. But if someone that votes differently than you lives next door, you're going to see him in the yard. Maybe they found your cat and returned it to you. Maybe you found their cat and returned it to them. You've had these little interactions. Maybe supported each other a little bit here and there. Those simple ways of supporting people. Yeah, sure, I can give you a hand. I can give you a hand shoveling your driveway when it snows. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no problem. I'll keep an eye on your kid while you got to run out. No worries. Sure, you can borrow my lawnmower. I absolutely have a cup of sugar. And in those situations, when you've loaned someone your lawnmower, when you've loaned your neighbor your lawnmower, and they've given it back to you, or when your neighbor has loaned you their lawnmower, it's harder to stay mad at them. It's harder to stay mad at them. Or perhaps your neighbor's really, really hot. Harder to stay mad at him. But if you don't have a literal or metaphorical neighbor that believes differently than you, this is our little way of trying to give you an up-close and personal take of another human being and try and recognize all the things in them that are just that, human. The stuff that you share with them. And an understanding of how they got to the stuff that you don't share with them. And that is our little way of trying to move the ball of humanity further down the field and bridge the gaps of divide that plague our nation in this troubled time. And for that reason, we're talking to Alice in Chains front dude, William Duvall, an interesting guy, and I'm sure he'll have some interesting things to say. Right now, though, Funkhouser, how much time we got? We got time to do some news?
We got a couple of minutes here.
Sure. All right. Newsy news.
Let's see. Where do we leave off last? We talked about ARP. Dancing with the Stars is reportedly trying to book Billy Bush.
Of course, if that happens, we're going to have to change the name of the show to Dancing with the Stars and the World's Biggest Tool. What else?
Billy Bush, the world's biggest tool, is donating $10 million to women's charities.
You know, and FYI, I feel about Billy Bush the same way I felt about Justin Bieber. When Justin Bieber came onto the scene, people were like, you don't understand. He's really talented. Just a kid who got discovered on YouTube, and he's really talented, and he's like super nice, and he's just trying to support his mom and all this sort of stuff. I was like, no. This is the work of a little satanic succubus at work. This is this Bieber phenomenon that you see in front of you. Oh, he's cute. He's just 16. No. He is hellspawn, sent to Earth by Satan via Canada to ruin everything for all of us. Watch. And then a year and a half later, there he was, spitting on his fans, starting fights with people, industrial size drums of codeine cough syrup, acting all gangster rap, urinating in mop buckets in restaurants. And I was right. And I'm right about Billy Bush as well. Everyone was like, he's just a TV guy. No! Sent to Earth by Satan.
Money making, skills on the mic, can be paid every day and provide the voucher. Better act if you know. Down to the crown.
Stimulated minds want to know, what were you thinking? No, really, give us a call and tell us. KPRC AM 950.
There's something happening here, and you should know what it is. The Dumbing Up of America. Now, more AD on the radio.
We're joined on the phone now by William Duvall, lead singer of Alice in Chains. Last time I saw you guys play, you played a symphony hall, which classy move for Alice in Chains. It was awesome. I thought it was really cool. When I was a kid growing up in England, I heard your guitar player, Jerry Cantrell, talking to someone on the radio who asked him, what was the first record or musical performance or maybe something you saw on TV or a show that you went to that really let you know you were bit by the music bug and you had to do this with your life? And quick as a flash, Jerry was like, oh, Elton John, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. And I was like, wow, I wouldn't have expected that. But for you, what do you suppose that would be?
It was Hendrix, Band of Gypsies.
Wow, you didn't even have to think about it for a second. There was no umming or ahhing. How did it come into your life?
My cousin Donald moved in with my mother and me. We were living in a small apartment in Southwest D.C., and Donald came in kind of to escape kind of a troublesome home life, and he's 10 years older than I, so he's 18 and I was 8, and he brought his little record collection with him, and it wasn't many records, but the ones he brought were all just these titanic releases by, great bands of the time, like, Weather Report and Roy Ayers and folks like that, and Santana was another one. And the one that really caught me was Band of Gypsies right out of the gate. And we probably played that record for 2 years straight every day. And I can still scat sing all the solos on it. And what really was intriguing was a lot of Donald's records were kind of misused and stuff from his life at his previous home. And so they didn't have covers, a lot of them. And he would get through that by, sort of drawing psychedelic hand-drawn designs on the paper sleeves. But I didn't know what Hendrix looked like for a while. So I was already really intrigued by the music, and I was already asking Donald all these questions because I asked, like, what is that making all that noise, And he said it's a guitar. It's a guy doing this with a guitar. And I just thought, whoa, because I had a little toy guitar that I'd gotten probably when I was about 5, but I couldn't imagine that a guitar could make all of that howling and everything. And so,
right. Wow.
Donald went to the library because this is, 1976. There's no internet. You can't just pull everything up at the, push of a button. So he went to the library, as you did back in those days. And he photocopied photographs from old issues of Rolling Stone magazine to bring home to show me what Hendrix looked like, and I was blown away.
You heard these sounds being created by this guy, and you had to know what type of person is doing this, and to do that, a trip to the library was necessary. Some photocopies were necessary before. Do you think that in this day and age, where you don't have to work as hard to know all these things about music, do you think that sort of, I won't say it cheapens the experience of music, but I feel like a lot of people are missing out on some fun. That journey of discovery is something that is people don't get to go on it anymore.
Yeah, well, I made some of the best friends ever that I still have in my life from hanging out in the record stores and going through the bins. And you'd see somebody else across the room going through some bins, and and then you look over and you go, oh yeah, I have that Coltrane record, blah blah blah, and the conversation starts, and next thing you know, you're fast friends. I do think there's a lot to that, and it is missed with the current situation. People sort of mostly getting the music through their smartphones and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. You ever told that story to your cousin who introduced you to Hendrix?
Sure. No, he knows how important he was to my whole thing, for sure. Because, I started playing guitar in earnest at 8 years old because of that.
Right.
And, and it began on an old beat up gut string acoustic that I found in my grandmother's basement, but it quickly graduated to my first electric guitar a year or two later. And that guitar, that electric guitar, that first electric guitar was bought by my cousin when he joined the Navy. With his first paycheck, he sent it back to me, and I was able to purchase a brand new Fender Mustang in '77.
No kidding! Wow.
Yeah.
Your cousin's a really important guy in your life. Got you your first real guitar. Got you into Hendrix. It's really cool. This is why I asked this question. You get great stories.
Yeah, man. And the big revelation, really, with the photographs that he brought home was that Hendrix looks like us.
Right.
Oh, my God. You know what I mean? He looks like me. You know what I mean? That can't be overstated how important that was. That whole aspect of it, too. It's like there was a little bit of a message there, like, you can do this.
Right. Look, we're in a funny time in our country, for sure. A lot of people would say we're perhaps more divided, certainly more divided than I ever remember things being in my lifetime. And things like that, especially for a kid that's, feeling whatever sort of tension is going on. It's the idea that music is a meritocracy and it's equal. And if you can sing and if you can play, you got something to offer the world. Doesn't matter who you are, what you came from. Like, I think that's an incredibly powerful message, and I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was just reading an article right before I called into you guys on, Muddy Waters. And, it's just, I've read many stories about him and biographies of him and stuff, but just the idea that this guy literally came from nothing, I mean, he's in the Mississippi in the first years of the 20th century, and this guy, he goes from picking cotton to leading one of the greatest bands ever, and influencing the entire everything that came after him. And playing electric music. I mean, the first sort of real electric band that you could almost call the first rock band in earnest was Muddy Waters' band.
What's the old expression? Muddy Waters invented electricity.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You've got a new band together called Giraffe Tongue Orchestra. Let's talk a little bit about that. How'd that happen?
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah. GTO is incredible. It's myself singing. It's Brent Hines on guitar. It's Ben Wyman from the Dillinger Escape playing on guitar. Brent Hines, of course, from Mastodon. And then on drums, we have Thomas Pridgeon, who's played with the Mars Volta and lots of other people. And on bass, Pete Griffin, who's played with Zappa, plays Zappa, Deathlock, lots of other people as well. Great musicians. And we just have released this album called Broken Lines. It came out on September 23rd. And it's just amazing because, it's heavy, it's progressive in a lot of areas, but it runs the gamut. We've never been more proud of anything that we've ever done, and I can speak for every one of us saying that.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's awesome, man. I got a copy of the record a little while ago, and I put it on. I was like, these real deal musicians, these guys can really sing and really play, and they're not running from it. They're not dumbing themselves down, yet they're still making something that's compelling and grabs you immediately. A lot of the times when musicians get clever, it alienates a lot of folks, and when this comes out of the speakers, it does not. It drags you in by being intelligent, and I think that's really, really cool.
Thank you so much for saying that. I really appreciate that.
No, it's good stuff. And super quick, we gotta jump in a little bit. I know your time is limited, but where do you see yourself as a musician? Alice in Chains, Giraffe Tongue Orchestra, all of the above that William Duvall does, as we get ready to make our way into a November that will put a new person in the White House. I'm not asking you to say who you're voting for, who you're not voting for, but what would you say is the place of music? Because I think it's more important than ever before. But what, as a musician, what is your role in this version of America?
Wow. Yeah, that's very interesting. I think my role as a musician and my role as an artist is just to hopefully reflect the human condition as accurately as I can, filtering all the information I receive from the outside world, from my own life, et cetera, through the prism of my soul, and then refracting that out to the world again. And that's really that's a role that I feel carries a tremendous responsibility, just to be true to yourself, really, wherever that takes you. Be as true to yourself as you can. And I think beyond that, music does have the ability to bring a lot of folks together who wouldn't otherwise be together. Tonight we're about to play here in, where are we? We're in Scottsdale, Arizona. Mm-hmm. And I suspect that the audience of however many thousands of people there tonight, they probably run the gamut in terms of political persuasions and views on all these issues that we're facing right now, many of which have been issues we've been facing for decades, if not centuries. And I suspect that, all of these people who may have these differing views on all of these different subjects, they're all going to be screaming along to Man in the Box, though, or Last of My Kind, or whatever. You know what I mean? Whatever we're going to play tonight, Check My Brain. That is the power of music, and I think that at its best, it can let you see the humanity in your neighbor, because you can look at somebody and go, well, if they can get into this tune as hard as I am, or if they can get into this artist as much as I do, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe they're not all bad, you know what I mean?
No, there's tremendous unity in music, and it's just like when I just think that any kind of common ground that you can find with anyone else in right now, like the old expression goes, divide and conquer, and I feel like Americans are we're facing division and we're being conquered, and I think that things like music are more important now than ever before for exactly the reason you said. There's an ability music has to bring people together and show them common ground that almost nothing else on this planet has.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I do, relish the opportunity and the position that I occupy and that all artists occupy, to do that. And then beyond that, you try to be the best person you can be out there to everyone you encounter.
100% agree with you. William Duvall, we have to run. We got to let you go. You got to get on stage and do your thing. But in these troubled and or divided times where people are looking for something, I would advise going to see an Alice in Chains show, listening to an incredible record like Giraffe Tongue Orchestras, and sharing it with your friends, finding common ground any way you can that way through music. Thank you so much, dude.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
Decode me like a cipher. I seek the night. We come alive where the blood moon rises. We come alive where the stars align. We love to feed upon the pretty faces. We die where the sun can't shine. Oh yeah. Come alive where the blood moon rises.